2024 to order. This will be both a physical meeting and a virtual meeting. Some members of city staff or consultants may be participating via teleconference. Today's meeting may be viewed live on YouTube, Facebook, and available for viewing after the meeting on cable channel 10 HD 1090. Public comment is not normally taken at workshops, meetings, although the City Council may allow or request public participation. We have no action items on our agenda today. I just wanted to open with a quick comment to say that we had a very late meeting last evening. My thanks to both our staff and our city council for their hard work. I've asked my executive staff for their ideas on how we can reduce the length of meetings, including the potential of adding additional meetings as needed. I would like to hear council's ideas on this topic as well. Last night, items that received very few questions or comments when presented to the council at workshop meetings became lengthy discussions. In the interest of not lengthening our workshop today, please submit your ideas to both myself and interim city administrator Sabrina Combs. I value your comments, and your participation in improving this process is appreciated. So with that, we will move on to the first item within our agenda for the workshop today, which is under development services and introduction to missing middle housing. And here to introduce that this afternoon is our senior planner, Ray Lindenberg. Welcome back.
I will endeavor to shorten the meeting today, but we are going to talk a little bit about missing middle housing. As you mentioned, this is an introduction. We talked to the Planning Commission previously about this, and this is kind of getting folded into our overall comprehensive plan process as well. So this is kind of an introduction for you, just to let you know what we're doing downstairs, and if you have any questions, we can talk about that at the end of the presentation here. So I'm going to start off this way already, huh? Okay, there we go. Okay, so we talked originally, this kind of started out as a process by which we were going to do some revisions to our accessory dwelling unit ordinance. There were some concerns about the Band-Aid effect and the concept of attached versus detached ADUs and how those are regulated. We'd taken that originally from our Affordable Housing Task Force that happened several years ago. But going through all of that and working through all of those items, we got some new regulations from the state level. And so we decided to kind of shift gears and change around what we're looking at to kind of encompass the ADUs, the missing middle housing, and all of the other housing types that aren't single family essentially, and talk about how those might be addressed in our new comprehensive plan and any zoning amendment change or zoning changes that may happen following that. So you might be aware of House Bill 1110. I did attach that to the agenda bill today. It does apply to certain cities. There are over 25,000. We just barely missed that. We are under 25,000 per the standards set by the state. However, that being said, I think and staff thinks it's a good idea to be ready for that and be ready for those regulations because it's the right thing to do. We need to provide more affordable housing in this community, and I think we can do it. The second thing that we came up with is the housing allocations, or the numbers that we're getting from the state handed to us by the county, and the number of new housing units that we're supposed to be allowing for or providing for. And so those two things kind of came together into our comprehensive plan process. Now, to talk specifically about middle housing, the list is there. Duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, fiveplexes, sixplexes. It sounds like a Dr. Seuss book. Courtyard apartments, cottage clusters, and townhomes. Essentially, everything that's in between your single family home and your larger apartment building. So those are the ones that kind of got lost in the shuffle when we did our typical Euclidean zoning. We have our single family zone districts, takes up a significant portion of the community. Then we started thinking about, well, we need to provide some apartment buildings and some, more dense housing types. So we have apartment complexes. And then somewhere in the middle, we have those duplexes and fiveplexes and all those things. Their typical form is to be more house scaled. So if you had a triplex or a fourplex, it might still fit on that single family lot. Nowadays, when we're looking, instead of a 7,200 square foot lot, maybe a 3,200 square foot lot, Maybe that's not the case, but maybe it is. It might be smaller units. It might be just a different design concept. But the idea is to make it essentially appear as a neighborhood. And we're kind of going away from the idea of saying a single-family neighborhood, but a neighborhood. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. You drive through older cities and you see them all over the place. They're the big older houses that got converted into 4 or 5 units. They're the row houses that just happen to be connected together. They're things like that. So that little graphic there kind of shows some of the concept, but it does expand on that. So going back to ADUs, they're not defined as middle housing, but they do provide infill housing that we desperately need. And so one of the things that we're looking at is how these fit into neighborhoods, how the ADUs and the missing middle housing fits into a neighborhood. And so one of the concepts that we talked about is the form of a building. We go back to the discussion of a duplex versus an ADU, and some of you were here for that, and some of you weren't. But essentially, our regulations didn't really provide a lot of division between what an ADU was and what a duplex was. And I'm talking about an attached ADU, part of the existing house. You have 2 units in one building. The only difference is the number of parking space that we require. For an ADU, we require 1 parking space for the ADU. For a duplex, we require 2 parking spaces for both. Everything else is pretty much the same. Setbacks are the same, design standards are very similar. It's just a very similar type structure. And so when we look at that, it becomes kind of a semantics issue. What are we really calling these? What is it truly? And so we talk about the state possibly requiring multiple ADUs per single family property. And so we're thinking that maybe the idea is to pivot to a low density definition rather than a single family definition. And that low density can be defined by number of units per acre, number of units per lot, things like that. And then that would specifically allow for some or all of those missing middle housing types, which is what the state wants us to do. And again, we are under that threshold of 25,000, but we feel strongly that we should be doing this anyway, because again, it's kind of the right thing to do, and it provides for more affordable housing and more housing choices, and helps us get to those numbers that the state is passing down to us to, you know, maintain 5,500, whatever the exact number is, of housing units over the next 20 years. So moving forward, we applied for and got a state grant to do some of this work. The deliverables for that grant are to do research, draft feasibility, draft some new code language, doing amendments to the design regulations and guidelines document, and an ordinance implementing those changes. So essentially, we're working on the research process right now. What are other cities doing? What are our options? What can we do? We're going to talk about feasibility of some of those options as we go through this process and draft some new code language. The problem is we're also working on our comprehensive plan. So some of this is getting a little bit out of order. So we might not be able to take advantage of that full grant funding, but that's okay. This is kind of a bonus for us as far as actually getting some of this stuff paid for. We'll do everything we can to make sure that we stay on that track to take full advantage of that grant. But some of the realistic, you know, working through the comprehensive plan and everything, it might not work, but we'll do our best. And then, you know, obviously there's the comprehensive plan process, and that will be very public fronted. There'll be a lot of opportunity for the public to comment on it and discuss what it is that they want to see for the city. And so the ADU ordinance change that we started out with many, many years ago has morphed into a residential zone district reconfiguration and a comprehensive plan topic. And essentially what we're looking at right now is, where does Oak Harbor stand? What do we need? And then kind of a philosophical discussion is, where do we want to go? And what is going to be best for the community? So as I kind of wrap up this presentation, I want to leave that for you. And if you have any ideas or concepts, discussion you want to have about that, we can do that here. You can email me. We can talk about it at a different time. But we're going through the process of figuring out what other cities are doing to meet the middle housing needs, and also going through that comprehensive plan process. So it's starting to join back together as far as the process is concerned, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have today.
Great, thanks, Ray. I will turn it over to council for any questions or comments. Councilmember Stuckey.
Just out of curiosity, ADUs as we know them now, like detached ADUs specifically,
Yeah.
any idea how many we have in the city? It doesn't seem like it's something that's too taken advantage of.
So I can't say how many are existing and how many might have been developed extra legally. But I
Okay.
can,
Well, that we know of. That we're,
I can tell you in the almost 10 years that I've worked here, I can count the number of ADUs I processed on one hand and have at least a couple of fingers left over because it hasn't happened that often. And the unfortunate thing is about it, it was a big discussion during the Affordable Housing Task Force is, excuse me, let's get more ADUs out there. And so there was this kind of impression that they were difficult to get, and that's why nobody did them. And so when we did the research on our ADU ordinance, we found our ADU ordinance was more liberal than just about anywhere. We had no maximum size for an attached ADU. If you have an attached ADU, you can build it as big as you want. You could have a 2,000 square foot house and a 5,000 square foot ADU. There were no restrictions on that as long as you met the setbacks and the height limits and the parking requirements and everything. The one restriction that was on there that is fairly typical is that the owner has to live on the property. So we changed that. The only kind of unfortunate thing that we have with our code right now is we have attached ADUs and we have detached ADUs. And the only way that we could figure to be able to effectively regulate the size of a detached ADU is by considering it to be similar to an accessory building. And accessory buildings are limited to 600 square feet. So there is that. But there are kind of workarounds with regards to building a detached ADU that's actually attached to the house. If you connect it via a breezeway or some structural element, it becomes attached to the house, and then you go back to that no limitation. So it's really flexible. I'll put it that way.
I kind of had a feeling you said there weren't going to be that many.
Yeah.
Do you know of any municipalities that are having success with ADUs and what they may be doing differently, or is ADUs just something that sounds good on paper but doesn't happen a lot in practice?
So there are definite advantages to ADUs and there are disadvantages as well. The advantage to an ADU is it might be property that somebody already owns and maybe they're not utilizing a portion of the house or the yard or the garage or whatever it is. They could do a garage conversion. They could finish a basement, whatever it is. There aren't a lot of basements here. Most people are using their garages, so it starts to become limited. The problem with ADUs is, while you can get a lower rent, you could potentially have somebody come in and get a lower rent, there is a cost involved, and it's significant, especially if you're building from scratch. If you're adding on to your house or if you're building that detached ADU, there's a cost involved. And then when that property gets sold, the property value is higher. So ironically, you've created a more expensive house that may or may not be used as an ADU and a house. So it's kind of it's an odd situation. And the philosophical discussion of what an ADU is versus what a duplex is kind of important here. The way I see it is that if we're going to allow ADUs everywhere, then why are we not allowing duplexes everywhere? And if we're allowing duplexes everywhere, what is a single-family zone district? So one of the things that we've been talking about as staff is moving to a form-based code. And I think we've had this discussion before, that Nolan came in and talked to you about that. The form-based code essentially says, okay, here's what your building looks like. What happens inside it is less important than what the form is. Do we have the setback requirements? Do we have the yard space? Do we have the amenities and the aesthetics that make it into a nice neighborhood? Because if you have, a 2,000 square foot building that has 3 units in it, you're probably not going to have that many more people living in that 2,000 square foot building than one that has 1 unit in it. And so the actual impact and the effect on the community is roughly the same. And so when we look at doing that form-based code, you have a lower density form, and then you have a slightly higher density form. It doesn't change the, overall community, itself that much. It's just how we regulate it.
Thank you for making that simple for me. I see your point of what's the difference between an ADU and a duplex.
Yeah.
Last question, and maybe my memory is a little lax on this. I thought that there was either someone going through the process as developer, or it may have even been an annex request with the intent of doing a bunch of duplexes. Does that ring a bell, or am I maybe misthinking of something? I could have sworn there was somebody who was looking to do multiple duplexes. Maybe it might have been the annex, and it was just pie in the sky conversation. Do you know of any place like that? Or my memory?
I don't remember anything specific. I don't
Okay,
think
I
there
may
was
be
any
remembering
pre-apps. I mean, and that's the thing. I have talked to developers who have thought about the idea of building, either a house in a separate ADU or a house with an attached ADU. And it comes down again to that issue of all of a sudden then you have moved into the next up price bracket because you're building that many more square feet, essentially. And so it becomes difficult because when you move into that higher, price range, it's harder to sell houses.
And one last question. So I lived in a housing complex in Marysville, and it was, homes between 14 to 2,000 square feet. They were very, very, very close together, and they were considered condos, essentially. The housing that's going above Walmart, I mean, the developers proposed a lot of homes for that. Does that fit into this at all? Like, are those considered condos, or are those considered individual single-family homes, or?
They're on their own individual parcel. They are single-family homes. It was approved as a PRD, Planned Residential Development, as single-family homes. The interesting thing about that particular location is a split-zoned project. There is a portion of that land that is zoned R1. There's a portion of that land that's zoned R4. And at the time, the interpretation was that we will just average that, and whatever gets you to that density will be there. The unfortunate thing about that is close to the minimum density that would be allowed there when we do that averaging. And we have found that is the case a lot of times, is that developers are doing kind of that lower end of the required density for whatever zone district they're in. We're trying to encourage people to do more. I've talked to a lot of developers and said, this is great, but you can do more. You can do better. This community deserves that. And so it's kind of, there's a little arm twisting, and we can only do so much, but, we need more, we need better. Let's do this as a team. And so, it's a philosophical thing, and we have to have willing developers too. We have to have people who want to come in and not necessarily max things out. And I hate to use that terminology because it sounds scary, right? But if you do higher density and you do it well, it shouldn't be scary at all. So.
Yeah, as I always said, I see our role as more, we create the environment, but we're not creating the projects here.
Yep.
That's not our authority. So, all right, thank you so much.
Yep.
Ray, really quickly, could you just explain the difference between R1 and R4 for those that do not know, though?
Sure, yeah. So we have 4 different residential zone districts. R1 is your typical single-family zone district. Up until a couple years ago, it was a 7,200 square foot minimum lot size. We removed the minimum lot size, but included a minimum width by length or depth that essentially gives a 3,200 square foot minimum lot size. We have the R2, which allows for, and R1 only allows for single family plus ADU. R2 allows for duplexes and limited multifamily up to 12 units per acre. The R1 is 3 to 9 units per acre. And then R3 is more dense multifamily up to 16 units per acre. And then R4 is our densest multifamily, which allows up to 22 units per acre. And one of the things I think that we'll see as we go through this process, if we keep those zone districts, you're going to see those densities move up a little bit. And if we don't keep those zone districts and move over to a form-based code, then it will be essentially baked into that process to have greater densities.
Thank you for that. Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ray. You kind of really touched on what my question is. If we go away from single family or R1 and go to a low density, that's going to eliminate the ability then for a single family on a lot, or are we going to have?
Nope, not at all.
Okay.
And this has been a concern, and I know that it's out there. I'm glad you brought it up. You hear a lot on TV or in the news or whatever, that so-and-so city is banning single-family zoning. That's not entirely true. Single-family homes will still be able to be built. We're not going to ban that. That's crazy talk, The density level might make it less palatable for people who want larger yards, in which case they might have to buy an older home or buy in the county or something like that, because we're trying to accomplish more urban density here. And that's driven by the state. We have minimum standards for for how many units per acre we're doing, then we have to do it. But a single-family home is not going to be outlawed in any way. You could still build a single-family home with any of these concepts that we have. The low-density district, and again, if we just did a low density, that might be 1 unit to 4 units per parcel. If we did it in a form-based code, the form doesn't care. You know, it's a building that can be on this lot and it has these setbacks. You can put 1 to however many units in it. So single-family homes will still be available. I want to make that perfectly clear because I know that's a concern.
Sure. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Councilmember Hoffmeyer.
Yeah, Ray, thanks for all that. Is there a way to incentivize or, possibly waive permit and connection fees for
Yes.
ADUs upon initial construction? The reason I ask, once that house is built, the ADU isn't going to make financial sense after the fact, and I think that's why you've approved of so few.
Yeah.
That unless it's happening at the same exact time that the rest of the site's being developed, it's just not going to happen.
That is something that we've talked about, and it's a touchy subject.
Yeah.
We have a clean water facility we're trying to pay for. We have infrastructure that's getting old. You know, we have these things that need to get paid for somehow. And in theory, we could double the number of units in the city of Oak Harbor pretty quickly, you know, by just having an ADU on every lot, in theory. That would put a significant strain on those facilities and no way to pay for it. So that's kind of the concern. It is something that we're definitely taking a look at, and, you know, there's bonus programs for affordable housing and, you know, all sorts of different ways that that could be accomplished. It's not something that's been on my plate. It's a kind of higher level type thing, but it's something that we're definitely looking at.
So it's the concern with losing the system development charge that would be an issue there?
I mean, I don't know if
Because
it's,
you'd still have the,
I could probably address that.
thank you.
It's Dave Goldman from Home. Sorry, still sick. So if you recall back a couple of years ago when we adopted the system development charges, we actually carved out a special category for ADUs. So no matter what size they are going to be paying the lowest connection fees. So that's just something to keep in mind, that the council had already had the foresight to think about this, and that's how they decided to address the SDCs at the time, for specifically as they relate to ADUs, to help incentivize ADUs.
Perfect. Thanks for that, David. So it sounds like in a way that we already have incentivized them a little bit, and like Mr. Lindenberg was mentioning, maybe it is on the willing developers, and it is something the community deserves. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hoffmeyer. Anyone else? All right. Thank you, Mr. Lindenberg. And next, we have the Glen Haven Plat Amendment request, and you will be presenting on that item as well.
I will, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm scrolling through all of the House bills right now. So the request here, or the conversation I want to have here, has to do specifically with the Glen Haven subdivision, which is just over just south of Whidbey Avenue on the west side, on Southwest First Avenue between Fairhaven and Jib Street. And what their request is, and I'll just kind of, let me go to the maps first here. So this is West Whidbey Avenue. On the left-hand side, you'll see Heller Street. On the right-hand side, you'll see Jib. And then this is the project in question, or the location in question. The houses along Southwest First there have a 20-foot landscape buffer that was required by the plat facing onto West Whidbey Avenue. The first 20 feet of their lot, they're required to take care of, but they cannot use. They have a fence that goes along there. They're not allowed to fence in that area. They're not allowed to put any accessory buildings or anything like that in that area. So we got a request from one of the property owners who wanted to extend the fence up to the sidewalk on Whidbey. We told him he couldn't do that because of what the plat says. So going back into my presentation here, I'll kind of go back in order now. So they wanted to construct the fence there and have the ability to use that portion of their lot. The face of the plat shows that there is a 20-foot landscape buffer with no construction permitted whatsoever. And so the staff assumption is that the requirement was intended to provide a native vegetation or kind of a native environment along Whidbey Avenue there. Subsequent development has not had that same requirement. When you look at other parcels or other subdivisions and developments that have happened along that street, especially to the east, none of those have a similar requirement as far as the landscaping. So when you look at West Whidbey Avenue, going back to this one, this starts at Heller and goes to Jib. This is an older subdivision. It does have some landscaping on it. However, it doesn't have a sidewalk on that side of the road either. So it's kind of an undeveloped, almost country road feel there. When you get to Glen Haven, they have the sidewalk and they have the development on the other side of the street that includes sidewalks and includes driveways and houses and all that. And then as you go to the east of Glen Haven, you have Hawthorne Place subdivision, which has a wooden fence right up against the sidewalk there. So that one was developed after Glen Haven was. You continue further on to the east and you have Whidbey Cottages, which was also developed after Glen Haven was developed. And you have essentially their front yards are that first 20 feet. So they have a fence, they have a walkway, they have their yard space there. It's all maintained. Glen Haven is the only one, it's the outlier. Talk about outliers a lot, but it's the outlier in this situation that they have this 20-foot requirement. They are required to take care of that yard space, but they can't use it. And so some people either, over the years since that subdivision was built, either just failed to maintain it or decided they didn't want to, or they did. So there's kind of a mishmash along there on the backside of Glen Haven as far as maintenance is concerned. Some people have gone through and just removed everything and mowed it all down. Some people have done nothing and allowed it to grow natural. There's probably some blackberries and other random plants in there. But staff's kind of feeling on this is that really hasn't worked the way it was supposed to. If we're looking at doing native vegetation in a buffer along a street, it should be consistent. It shouldn't be one subdivision or one block and then just go back to a fence. To be perfectly honest, I think having a fence along an arterial street is not a bad thing. It is more consistent in appearance. It's easier to maintain. It is essentially more fair to the property owners, if you will. So the request is that we consider changing the face of the plat, which requires the approval of the city council. And so that's essentially why we're here today. The property owners we've gotten signatures from all the property owners who back onto that particular stretch of roadway, which is one of the requirements for changing the plat. It would essentially, if we were to change the plat, it would have the effect of allowing fencing to be constructed on that north property line, which is essentially a foot away from the sidewalk. And it would also allow for construction of accessory buildings, ADUs, play sets, trampolines, et cetera, in that space that hasn't been available in the past. It would not require any of these things. If somebody chose not to, take that extra 20 feet with a fence, they could not. So the analysis here, essentially, Glen Haven is currently a patchwork of different varied maintenance, whether it's maintained or not. The south side of West Whidbey is fenced, landscaped, and manicured to the east. It's much more urban in its appearance. To the west is more native, but it also lacks a sidewalk. If we ever wanted, extend sidewalk or anything, that's probably going to have to change over there as well. And in the north side of West Whidbey is entirely front yards and developed with sidewalks and essentially, kind of urban development there. So the intent is difficult to determine from back in 1997 when this was developed, but the assumption is that the native vegetation was kind of the reason that was there. The inconsistent application of that intent since then has kind of torpedoed the whole concept of having a native vegetation along the entire stretch of West Whidbey Avenue. It's not an efficient land use pattern to us. We're talking about ADUs. Somebody could easily build an ADU on the back side there and have the front door open onto West Whidbey Avenue. That would be great. And this prevents that. So we have some options that we would like to kind of offer up and see how you feel about it. Number one would be to strike the landscape buffer and note sections from the plat. It says property owners would be permitted to build fences in that removed buffer area, and then also include the north-south fencing between their yards, and then be able to utilize that property as they see fit. ADUs, accessory buildings, garden spaces, whatever. Option number 2 is strike the 2 sections mentioned above there, with the caveat that a continual wood fence be constructed along that entire stretch, just for consistency's sake, to kind of match what's happening down at Hawthorne Place. That's kind of an aesthetic consideration. Don't know if we want to require that or if we even can, to be perfectly honest. And then option number 3 is leave those 2 sections in place and maintain the existing plat language and requirements, essentially do nothing in this situation. So wanted to bring this to you today in workshop format so we can discuss any ideas you might have. I just got an email today from the gentleman who originally brought this to me, and they were wondering if it would be possible to have some sort of decision so they can decide if they can build a fence during the summertime or not. So just wanted to bring that before you today and get any ideas. And if you're amenable to that, we can bring it back with a revised plat for approval by the city council, which is how it's required to be done.
Great, thanks, Ray. Now, questions and comments from council. Councilmember Stuckey.
Can we pull up the map of the proposed area? So, looking at, say, Jib, if you're coming from Jib and you're turning right onto West Whidbey, let's say that home there decides to put a fence. Is that going to be an impediment for being able to turn, for visual, for sight?
I mean, it would if they were allowed to build it right to the corner. There is a similar situation at the corner of Fairhaven, next block down. There is also a requirement that you maintain a clear space in those situations. So that lot might not be able to get that full 20-foot space. When they build that fence, they would need to build it per the public works standards, essentially, as far as maintaining a clear visibility triangle there.
Okay, I was going to ask what the maximum height of fence would be, but you kind of hit the nail on the head there. They couldn't anyways. It might look a little odd to have one with a fence, one with natural vegetation, one with a fence. At the same time, I'm kind of a property rights kind of guy, and the idea of telling them they have to have one continual fence, I agree with you. I don't know if that's fair to the people who may not want to put the money in to do that. I see one of these people are probably someone who rents it out who doesn't live there.
Yeah.
I don't see anyone there opposed to it. As long as there's not an impediment on visual on turning, I think it's kind of a no-brainer to allow them to do that. That's just how I feel about that personally. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Stuckey. Councilmember Hoffmeyer.
On that question of fences there, so a backyard fence, maximum height of 6 feet from road level?
From natural grade.
Natural grade, okay. If there were to be an ADU that accessed it off of West Whidbey, then that's the front yard height for a fence?
No, it would still be the backyard.
Okay,
We would
okay.
still consider it the backyard.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. And then, what, side yard's 4 foot or something, or is that 6 as well now?
So anything that's behind the house, and the way you look at it there, if you're going the fences that are between the yards, those
Uh-huh.
can be 6 feet.
Okay,
It's when you go in front of the house, in
Yes.
front of that front yard setback, that's when it has to go down to 3.
okay, perfect. That makes sense. I think that answers all my questions there. Just pretty familiar with this road here.
With West Whidbey?
Yeah, well, with this neighborhood. I don't see any real problems with it if staff doesn't.
Thank you, Councilmember Hoffmeyer. Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. Ray, I can appreciate the desire to address inconsistencies. I guess the concerns I have are, one, there seems to be a lot of mature trees there. And are they proposing to eliminate all of those trees? And then is there any kind of mitigation,
They're not
Because of that?
proposing,
okay.
the proposal honestly is one person wants to build a fence. We told them they can't. We told them they have to go through this process to remove language from the plat. So that's the extent of it.
Okay.
If that was a concern, I think that we probably have a logical nexus to ask or require that trees be at least maintained. I don't know if we want to start telling people they have to plant new trees.
Right.
But maybe that they have to be maintained to kind of follow the spirit of the original approval or something along those lines. I'm not sure. That might be a kind of a legal gray area.
Yeah.
But it's certainly worth looking into.
It's certainly a concern from anytime you start cutting down a bunch of trees, especially mature trees, you know,
Yeah.
that does impact, you know, our community. The other portion that I would, is there a way to require that we still have the ability to put a sidewalk there when we do redevelop that section of West Woodby? I mean, is that part of the plan? Is that we're gonna put sidewalk
So-
there? Or-
There's a sidewalk there already.
Is there? Okay.
Yeah, the sidewalk does not exist to the west between Heller and Jib. So don't recall the name of this subdivision, but there's the church across the street, and then there's Lanyard Loop there. So that's where it doesn't exist. They went through and did, that significant reconstruction last summer of that street, so it's probably good to go for another 20 years or so, I would guess.
Okay, I must be confused then, because I thought that was the section of Woodby Avenue we still have to do,
This one right here is,
from Jib to
Glen
Heller.
Haven is not.
Oh, okay, so Glen Haven's actually a different, I'm looking at a different subdivision then, okay.
Yeah, there was two separate pictures.
Perfect, okay. And then how does this potentially impact property values? I mean, are they getting then more property? Or so does that impact their property values? And then can that be construed as a gift of public funds because now we're taking away that buffer and giving them more land and
So-
increasing their property values, or?
Very good questions. I'm not an appraiser. I would presume that, if you saw a yard that was 20 feet deeper, then
Yeah.
that would be an improvement of their property values. That being said, it is not, I don't believe, a gift of public funds because it is their property. They just can't use it. Those lot lines go straight up to West Whidbey. It's
Okay.
just that their fence is 20 feet inward,
Gotcha, okay.
so.
All right, that was it, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Marshall. Councilmember Arms.
Well, I think it's a good idea. I mean, they're asking, they've done all the right things. It is their property, and they're restricted from doing it. Like I said, as long as there's vision. I hate to say this, but lots of people cut down trees without permission, okay? That's just the way it is. I've had that fun experience in my neighborhood. It is a concern, but we haven't got any ordinance that says you have to do whatever with the trees. And I think if they're all in agreement, we should just go ahead and allow them to do it. Thanks.
All right, thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
That wraps it up. We are going to move on to the finance area, and we have clean water facility debt refinancing options. And here to introduce this topic this afternoon is our finance director and deputy city administrator, David Goldman.
Thank you, Mayor. David Goldman, Deputy City Administrator. Hope you all can hear me. Let's get started. So on March 31st, 2 years ago at the City Council retreat, an idea was brought forth to explore the possibility of obtaining debt relief from the state regarding the state revolving loan debt that was taken out for the clean water facility. Last year in April, options were brought forward to the City Council to refund the SRF loans. City Council declined to pursue it and directed staff to continue to pursue more advantageous savings. So staff followed up with the Department of Ecology and the state legislature, and partly as a result of those efforts, we were notified that not only would they be able to refund the SRF loans, but also the private bond in the amount of $25.7 million that was taken out. So just an overview of the current debt. The 5 SRF loans were taken out for $103.5 million. There's $76.7 million remaining. The funding availability to restructure those loans is estimated to be later this year, and the first payment would be in January of next year. The municipal bond that was taken out, it's interest only right now, so it's $25.7 million. The interest rates range between 3.25 and 4%, and those are not redeemable until December 1st, 2024, which means we can't refund them until that date. The Department of Ecology said funding availability is estimated to be at the summer of 2027, and the first payment would be July 2027 if that goes through. So here are the terms of the potential debt restructuring. The state revolving fund loans, it would extend payback of the loans, the payback period by 11 years through 2049, and it would have an interest rate of 1.9%. The current interest rate is 1.65%, and the first payment would be January of 2025. For the private bonds, that would extend payback 3 years to 2049. The interest rate would be 1.4%, which is significantly less than the 3.43% weighted average of the current loan or bond. And the first payment conceivably can be in July of 2027. The lifetime savings over those 25 years would be just over $2 million, and that's in Table 2 in your backup. So, using Table 5 that's in your backup as a comparison, starting off with the total sewer rate of $118.41, and that includes the debt service portion and also the operations and maintenance portion of the sewer operations. Instead of reading it, let me just go here. All right. A better pointer. So I have this table. It's in your backup. It shows the repayments, the changes starting in 2025. The current equivalent monthly rate of the debt payment is $65.21 of the $118.41 total sewer rate. This column shows the proposed with the refinance with the debt restructuring, and this column just shows the difference between the current schedule and the new schedule. Per month, this is the amount here per year, and then, as you know, the cost of $1 today, the value of $1 today is worth more than the value of $1 tomorrow. So I use net present value of a 3% discount rate to discount those cash flows over the 25 years. The next slide has the totals. So let's see the next slide here. Oh, here it is. Yeah, next slide. Sorry about that. So you can see. So you can see that. I heard something. All right, moving on. So the average over those 25 years per month, the average savings is 75 cents. Multiplied by 12 is about $9 per year. And using net present value, these increases over the current debt schedule later on. And because of that, the net present value discounts is greater than the earlier dollars, just based on economic theory. So the average is actually a $42.30 savings over those 25 years per year. And also just wanted to let you know that you see an increase here, and that's not necessarily an increase in today's rate, but it's an increase over the debt schedule of the current debt. So the $46.99 is actually lower than what it currently is, but it is greater than what the debt schedule will be out in these years. So next slide. So lowering the rate does have an effect on utility taxes. Utility taxes are one of the four major pillars supporting the general fund. When we reduced the sewer rate to 3% 2 years ago, it resulted in a loss of $20,000 per year in recurring revenue to the general fund. Reducing sewer rates by $22.81 per that schedule would result in a loss of $145,000 to the general fund every year. So taking that, well, before I get into that chart, just how that looks calculated out. Here's the annual revenues that we get for each utility tax. This does not include the 0.25 for creative arts. This is just to the general fund. Each 1% is worth that much. If we just changed things to make it break even on the sewer utility tax, we have to increase the sewer utility tax by 1.16% over the current 6.25%. However, if we spread it out evenly, we'd have to increase each utility taxes on each one of our utilities by 0.582. That would bring the same amount of money in, about $145,000, and that equates to an addition of $1.11 on the utility bill. So let's go to the chart. So what that looks like is the previous chart, which was Table 5, showed this difference between the two paybacks, the current rate debt schedule and the proposed debt schedule. adding $1.11, which is this percent, whether it's only on sewer or spread out, would reduce the savings by a little bit, by $1.11, and it would show what's in this chart. Going down to the total, what that will end up doing is actually, compared to a savings, it would be a slight increase on the average over 25 years per month, or $4.34 per year. But on a net present value basis, it's actually a savings over the 25 years of $33.03 annually. So, further discussion at the city council meeting yesterday, I alluded to another option to fund police staffing needs and potentially other items. So I proceeded to do calculations and create some information for council to consider, since this can be related to this topic of utility rates and utility taxes. And I did this even though Sabrina told me not to stay up until 2 a.m. when I'm sick, but I have a nagging drive to always try to solve a problem for council or for department director or the mayor if a question comes up and it's in my wheelhouse. So what I was alluding to yesterday is that utility taxes can be a revenue source to fund police staffing needs. The combination of sewer utility decreases and a utility tax adjustment still provides an overall reduction to the customers. And of course, that would be in addition to the utility tax rate needed for the general fund to break even and not lose the $150,000 that we currently get now. So I created this chart, which shows that each 1% would generate about $250,000 on the utility taxes, and that would equate to about $1.90 on the utility rates. And this is, of course, the previous chart. The break even is about, just so the general fund doesn't lose money if the council decides to lower sewer rates. That's $1.11. And here's the state averages as well. You can see the different state averages for water, sewer, solid waste, and storm drain. And again, these calculations don't include the $60,000 generated for the Creative Arts Fund by the 0.25%. And the state averages are based on the Association of Washington City survey. So I created this chart, which shows the cost of just the police staffing needs only over 25 years. And then I showed the potential grant and opioid funds that we're definitely getting the opioid funds, and we might get the grant funds to help fund them. And also an additional utility tax revenues generated if we increase utility tax by 3%. This column here has the total of the revenues generated in grants, and then this shows the net costs. I remember yesterday someone bringing up that it'll cost $950,000 for police staffing in the 8th year, but we don't need to fund that amount in the first year, because remember, we're hopefully going to get these grants, and we definitely have the opioid funds to help offset some of these costs. And if you count, it's the $625,000 plus the $1.2 million from the opioid grant, the $625 from the COPS grant, that's $1.825 million of funding to offset these costs. So I have this chart. It goes through 25 years, assuming a 3% utility tax increase and 2% inflation, because the amount we get from utility tax does go up. We get new customers with new development growth. You can see that over the 25 years, the total here of revenues and grants is greater than the total cost. So it's covered over the 25 years, and 25 years is a pretty long time to be doing financial planning, but it's covered for 25 years. So just so how that looks, here's your current monthly sewer rate, including operations, maintenance, and debt service. This would be the adjusted monthly sewer rate with the debt restructuring. This would be the additional utility tax just to get the general fund to break even by reducing the sewer rate. 570 would be $1.90 times 3 for a 3% monthly utility tax adjustment. And it's equivalent whether it's just on sewer or spread out through all the utilities. So basically, adjusting the monthly sewer rate to $95.60 and adding the utility tax amounts would bring it up to $102.41 for an overall reduction of $16 a month, or 13.5% over where the rates are now. And then just so you can see how that would look compared to the state average, here's our current rates. This is the break-even rate, just for the general fund to break even by lowering the rates. This is a 3% utility adjustment to bring in that money. And this would be our utility rates after those adjustments, and this is how they compare to state average. So for two of them, the two biggest ones we have, it would be under the state average, and for solid waste and storm drain, which are comparatively smaller, it would be over the state average. Actually, no, storm drain would be under the state. No, it'd be over the state average. Sorry. So that's all I have. It's up to council to deliberate and provide feedback. I put some major points on the screen for you to consider, and we're all staff is all ears to answer the questions you may have.
Great, thanks, David. And I will call on Councilmember Hoffmeyer first.
Yeah, an incredible amount of work has went into this over the last 3 years. I would say I can't thank staff enough for getting it to this point. The ingenuity to push for them to include the private bond as well and to make these numbers better. I couldn't be happier. This is something that's going to positively impact people's lives for a long time in Oak Harbor, and I think that's why we're all here. There's going to be a certain amount of credit that goes around on something like this, and for a new administration to be able to come in and to continue the progress being made, I could not be more ecstatic to see that. So David, I know you stay up to 2 a.m. and work a lot. It's appreciated. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Marshall?
Thank you, Mayor. David, you're an absolute wizard. I actually just want to stand up and clap and give you a hand. I mean, that's incredible, and I hope that we can make this happen, and it takes care of our constituents, it takes care of the ratepayers, it gives us the option to provide additional public safety, and I appreciate your diligence and willing to stay up and put this together, and it's absolutely incredible. And so thank you so much for this, and thank you, Mayor, for this.
No problem.
Councilmember Stuckey.
So you went over that quickly. You kind of sound like me when I've done business plans. I can explain it real fast. It makes perfect sense to me, but sometimes you need to slow it down for those that I'm trying to explain it to a little bit. So,
Sure.
So a couple of questions. First, if we could, after this meeting, get the updated slides sent an email to everybody. I don't think because in the packet these were done last night, so we haven't seen.
Oh yeah,
that. So it'll help me a lot more to give more positive feedback if I can sit here and look at these slides for 10 minutes. How did you come to the 3% on the NPV?
Oh, I can't. It's in the backup. What I did was I pulled all the data available for a long-term discount rate, and I went back 41 years. And the average inflation rate for 41 years was 3.8% in the Federal Reserve. And because we're using a time period of 25 years, it equates to a long-term time period. So that's why I got that's why I used 3%. I mean, if I was just doing something that was a shorter time period, I might use a shorter time period of history to develop what the interest rate could look like. But because this is like a really long-term financial planning period, I utilized the long-term inflation rate per the Federal Reserve data. It's in the backup, I think, in page 4, I think, of
Sure.
the agenda.
Could you go over one more time for me? Assuming we do what we needed to do for police, and maybe it's on a slide. Okay. So if I'm understanding it correctly, the average person would see a $16 reduction per month on their sewer rate. That's not necessarily utility rates overall. That's the sewer rate, correct?
It would be on the sewer rate would be $22. The rate itself would be this number minus this number. However, on top of the rate, there's the utility tax, right? Mm-hmm. So the utility tax equivalent dollar amount would go up by $1.11 to make the general fund break even, plus the $5.70. So the rate itself would go down by, I had this on another slide, like $22 or so per month. but the utility taxes would go up by $6.81 to offset some of that decrease. But if you take those together, and I checked this number a few times because it came out exactly $16, and I thought I must have done something wrong because numbers never come out that even, but it's accurate. The overall reduction on the average, on that year is $16.
So, and again, I'm trying to break this down for the average person who's just looking at their bill, that my bill in 2025 would be down $16 a month. Is that what I'm getting correctly?
That's what will happen. Yeah, I mean, if we spread out the utility taxes to, the other utilities, which is recommended, because then you'd have utility, then you'd have the utility tax and sewer being like 13 or 14%. So it makes sense to spread it out. But overall, it's the same dollar amount. So overall, whatever the utility bill is, because sewer's one portion. You have all the other.
Exactly. That's what I'm getting to. Yeah.
So let's say the total bill is $200. You'll get a rate decrease of about $22, depending on what council decides. But then the tax portion of it, which is not part of that $200, taxes on top of that, but the tax portion of it would go up by $6.81 to offset some of that decrease. So the overall savings, at least on the sewer portion, is 13.5%. It'd be a different percent if I took the whole $200, but anyway.
Gotcha. And then I've taken quite a few finances classes, but not nearly as much as you or Mayor. So I've heard your thoughts. Would you mind, Mayor, kind of giving your thoughts on this?
Well, I'm seeing this for the first time too.
Well, that's why I'm trying to struggle through this one and have more. But I value your opinion. I mean, you're from an accountant background.
Right.
You know what you're looking at.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, I trust David's math here, but I have not worked through this. But prior to, he did all of this pursuant to the feedback that he received in council meeting last night. Unbeknownst to me until I came in this morning to find out that he'd been working on this until 2 a.m., which would not have been my recommendation. But I appreciate everything he's done, and I know what he's trying to do. Our goal was overall, we're decreasing our overall debt by I don't remember what that number is. It's $2 million. So that right there was a huge win for me, regardless of what we could. But then I wanted to somehow also tie that back into our monthly savings to our citizens so that they felt that they were receiving something in their pockets. And so that's where that comes in. Yes, we're taking an average, assuming 3%, but I think that that's a very safe average when you look at the history over the last, did you say you did that over 31 years or 35 years?
41 years was the total
41,
data
sorry,
available.
Sorry.
from the
So,
Fed.
I mean, you're not going to get any more, that's about as conservative as you can get. So, yes, I agree. I again, without doing the math, I haven't done that yet, but I wholeheartedly agree. Yeah, with the process.
I'm kind of in the same boat. Looks good. As a numbers guy, I do need a good hour to kind of hold everything up. So, initial reaction, like it. Would have a hard time voting on it today. That's not what we're being asked for. So, looks good. Looking forward to seeing those, and I'm sure there'll be another question or two. But I appreciate this option and all you've done. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilmember Stuckey. Councilmember Arms.
Yes, thanks, David, for the slide. Maybe it's clearer now. I do have a question. We are building more and more, not a lot, but we're building. Will that also help take some of the burden off our taxes for the sewer rates?
Oh yeah. The more. I mean, we are building. We're not building super fast, but we are building. And every time we get new customers, we'll have new people be able to pay towards the debt service. But that also means that they'll be paying more for the actual operations and maintenance as well. So that's something to consider. That it's not just a thing where the denominator is going up and the numerator's, staying the same. It's things are changing on both ends. So it's kind of hard to say exactly if new growth itself is going to help things out or not. But we've been getting new growth at a certain rate for the past, 10, 20 years, and we're still in the situation that we're in. So it's not like an end-all be-all.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for all your work, and thank you for explaining it and staying up late. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, no problem. The only thing I'm a little concerned about this is, well, one, if the council decides it's a rate cut, so that's all good, it's a rate cut, But then it's also a utility tax increase on top of that. There's still an overall savings, but it's still a utility tax increase. And I mean, I don't know if I should, but I see stuff on social media and I see people make arguments. I don't ever join in. I don't think it's appropriate, but I see people make arguments, and it's not always the most accurate argument. Like, they don't take into consideration all the different iterations and facts and all the details, and they kind of come to kind of a groupthink kind of conclusion that this is the way it is, and this is what the city's trying to do, when it's not entirely true. And I just want to, I guess, say that if there's any way to kind of make sure that on social media people understand that this is an overall savings, even though it is coupled with a slight utility tax, that would be beneficial. But I don't think it's my role as a city staffer to enter into any kind of fray on social media.
Thank you. And I think, that's why Councilmember Stuckey was asking the questions about understanding the entire process. And the important thing is the message that people hear from here is that we took a holistic approach to this. And while, yes, we're giving in one hand and taking back in another, it's still a net savings overall. It's a way for us to meet all of our needs by giving and taking, and that's kind of what we have to do in this process. So the other things, that I have been questioned about were about how conservative was our approach, how aggressive are we being with our assumptions. And I think when you look at statistical analysis or, theory when it comes to finance and accounting, we use traditional, theory teachings, and we're as conservative as we can be. And you were diligent and conservative in those forecasts. And, I have a lot of faith and trust in you, and I appreciate all your hard work, and really appreciate you taking the time to do this. You went above and beyond with doing this. So thank you very much for doing that.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. So with that, I think we're good, and we're going to move on next to the fire department's annual report. And here to talk to us is our interim fire chief, Gordon Olson.
Talk about the past year and really what the next couple of years will look like for your fire department. Here are the basic statistics for the city. There's a more detailed annual report in your packet. Certainly look through it. Most notable here are the 1,686 calls, which is a 12% increase from 2022. I want to start off first by talking about what we call risk reduction or fire prevention. This is the efforts that we do to keep that number low and our attempts to prevent an emergency before it happens. So we reduce risk. These are our fire prevention efforts. We do commercial fire safety inspections at every business in the city, or at least every one that we can get into. In 2023, we did 826 inspections of commercial occupancies. This is a chance to keep the business owners safe, the public safe, and the employees of those business owners safe. We also use every inspection as a training opportunity for us. We look at each building, we do a pre-fire plan, we talk about what either a fire or a medical emergency may look like and how we would respond to that particular building. So it's a good use of our efforts. Real briefly, in 2023, we investigated 19 different incidents that were either fires or something suspicious enough that required us taking a look at. 8 of those fires had significant structural damage. So we do these investigations to learn. We want to determine the cause, the origin, and we report those findings back to national databases that have the opportunity to either change consumer products, find new ways of preventing fires in the future. Once in a while, and you can see that we had 5 arson fires. It does expand into a legal system where we partner with our police department to look at those issues. So in 2023, we estimated property and contents loss of $182,000 in 8 significant structure fires. However, what you might not have seen before, and what I like to report, is of those 8 structures and their contents, we estimated saved almost $1.8 million. So our efforts, make those lives better for the people that lost something. We like to be there to save for them. So real quickly, our training efforts. Proficient, competent firefighting practices really do require a high and constant level of training. By the nature of our 48-hour shift, we do a lot of that every day. We're immersed in those aspects of the training, again, each and every day. The hours that you see here are what I call the documented hours. That's one bar that I want to raise in the department, where our documentation gets better, because we do a lot of training that may be for 15, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. That means a lot for how we do our job, but we aren't always good about going back and documenting that training. And that shows our proficiency, but it also gives us opportunities down the road when we're reporting to national agencies or applying for grants that show what we're doing. So again, I set a high bar. The firefighters' life, health, safety is on my shoulders, so I am asking them to do so much more. And really, I ask them to train over and over and over and over again. In our line of work, we don't want to train just till we get it right. We want to train so we can't get it wrong. So it's a high bar that we're setting, and the firefighters in our department are absolutely stepping up. Firefighting itself, low frequency, high risk. So there's no room for just a minimum standard. So we also provide training to the public. And again, I'll take every opportunity to say that CPR saves lives. If you haven't been trained, we will train you. It fills that gap between a witnessed cardiac arrest and the arrival of advanced life-saving efforts. So we get out every year. We trained 1,000 people in 2023, and we'll keep doing it. We'll keep moving forward with those efforts. We do smoke detector events. Again, I'm a big proponent of smoke alarms. And I tell people too, smoke alarms are designed to wake you up when you're sleeping so you have enough time to get out of the house and save yourself. So that's the biggest, that's 99% of what a smoke detector is for. So if you don't have them in your homes, put them in your homes, because it's going to wake you up and save a life. We get out in the community at every community event or school that we can. We realize that education is a core component of that risk reduction and preventing things from happening. And we get into schools early so that, particularly those students throughout their lives are going to be constantly thinking about fire prevention and smoke detectors. So this is the big part for me that I want to spend some time on. This is the reason that we truly exist, and that's the emergency response. So just a couple quick components that again are in the annual report, but calls for service. We use these metrics again to frame our activities, to prepare our training efforts and public education efforts. Just a quick note on our fires. We responded to we were dispatched to 60 fires last year. Again, you saw that not all of them turn out to be fires. But when we roll out the door, we rolled out 60 times to a fire. We had 18 structure fires. Again, I mentioned that 8 of those became major fires. I'll make a quick note that with 7 cooking fires, kitchen fires, are the biggest cause of fires in the country. In all likelihood, many of those structure fires probably started in the kitchen. So it's something that we get out and we talk to the public about. We train seniors on eliminating those cooking fires. So watch your kitchen. Again, a quick note on medical responses, 803 medical calls. Mostly these are medical calls, which includes that co-response with our ambulance providers at Whidbey Health. Again, a couple quick notes. It's always interesting to know when the calls occur. Most of them do occur during the day, and noon happens to be our busiest hour. Wednesday's our busiest month, but our busiest day of the week. I'm not sure why, but again, you show it's pretty well rounded most every day of the week. So this is another big one that kind of starts the rest of my presentation. And this is the one we're preparing for, concurrent calls, when multiple calls occur at the same time. And our evolution to a 2 fire station model is the first answer of what's going to be a growing problem. So I want to kind of recap and talk about big changes that have occurred this year and will be occurring next year as we move to that 2-station model. And this was one of my deliverables coming on to provide you with input on what that multi-station deployment model looks like. So a few of my thoughts and recommendations. First off, as I arrived, this was already in motion. Fire Station 2, additional staffing for that fire station. We have 2 replacement apparatus on order. I would say replacement. One is a new Quint apparatus, which is a combination fire engine ladder truck that will be responding out of the new station. And then there is 1 replacement engine on order for one of the aging apparatus at our current headquarters station. The strategic plan. This hasn't necessarily been launched yet. I myself will leave you, and I prepared a strategic action plan that really will get that party started. I'm a firm believer in a community-driven strategic plan, and I think those efforts can get going quickly. I don't expect it to change the direction we're heading, but I think it will validate and give some vision for what we're doing. So I look forward to watching that occur. So let me start where I started when I came here back in February. I came in to evaluate the fire department, and I break our mission and vision down to basics. So why does the fire department exist? Our mission today, the reason we exist, is to mitigate the emergent needs of every citizen in the city of Oak Harbor in a period of time that can make a difference. And for basic purposes, that means getting first responders to a scene on a fire where we can confine a fire to room of origin, and to a medical call where we can resuscitate a cardiac arrest, again in that period of time, to make it survivable. So my mission is a fire chief's mission. The reason my position exists, and I break everything down for everybody in our department, they have to have their own mission. My mission is to inspire the firefighters to be masters of their craft as they deliver that mission professionally. To do that, I use guiding principles. I ensure that I give them the tools and the training they have to do their jobs and to look out for their health and safety over their whole career. Now, because we are here for that primary mission to respond to emergent needs, We are also there, and we can offer those pre-mitigation efforts like fire prevention, education, fire code compliance, fire sprinklers, EMS prevention, things like CPR training, because we are there already to meet that mission. But again, that's why we exist. So our basic vision, that's another thing that I love to do. I love to do visioning. What are we gunning for? What's our future state of the organization? What are we gonna look like in how many years? Right now, it's to be able to deploy and deliver that mission to the entire community. That's what our picture up on the wall is. It's the city of Oak Harbor with 2 adequately staffed with apparatus, equipment, training to respond to all hazards in our community. So in that vision, in that picture up on the wall, there are also people. There's adequate staffing. Again, they're well-trained, prepared, mentally and physically, confident, healthy, and excited to respond quickly and effectively. So that's the vision I want us to share, that shared vision. It's our target. So it's okay if we're not there yet. Resources, I know, are not unlimited, but if we share that vision, my job, the fire chief's job, will be to use the resources that you provide and deploy them towards that future, towards that vision. That's why Fire Station 2 and the staffing and support that you've shown already are a major step moving in that direction. And that's what we build a full strategic plan on. No perfect timeline, but there's always that picture on the wall. And rest assured, we have guiding principles to meet that mission and vision, which include compassion, professional delivery, fiscal responsibility in everything that we do. And then finally, values. Values are really important to me. I'm working with our department on organizational core values, not only recreating them, but understanding what they are. I'm working with our company officers, the true leadership out in our department that command each crew. Excuse me. They're the leaders of what we do, but they need to understand what values mean and how to use them in decision making. So that's the work that means the most to me. Our people really will make a difference. So where are we currently? As of today, we have 18 career line staff, the boots on the street that run on the fire engines. So that doesn't include myself, the deputy chief fire marshal, or our training captain. We currently have 12 paid on-call firefighters. 4 of them work full-time hours. The other 8 work part-time, again, just hourly employees. So what has changed over this past year? I want to cover that too. Over the last, particularly probably 18 months, our captains are assuming the incident commander position. They're becoming shift commanders 24/7, not just at night as has been done previously. The captains, when we go to a 2 fire station model, will oversee both stations. So one captain as a shift commander will oversee both stations. There will be 3 shifts, A, B, and C shift. And again, that schedule covers 24/7, 365. So our captains, something new to the organization, becoming shift commanders, I'm training them now. It's training that they haven't necessarily had. Most of the incident command has been done by previous administration day staff. So it's a different role, but it's a role that needs to happen. So in training them, I'm just using my experience to show them how to do that job, creating expectations for them that they can pass along, and preparing them to take care of their people. So all of our officers currently, our captains and lieutenants, we meet weekly now to train and learn from each other. We're writing a succession plan to prepare our organization for the future. We're implementing new policies, updating old ones. We've launched a peer support program for our first responder stress and mental health. I have no doubt we'll train and collaborate with our partners in PD and in our communication center going forward. We are building, and this is one of my core values, is a pride, ensuring health and safety and operational standards are set at a very high bar. We're going to be ready for a 2-station deployment. So what does that look like? And again, this is an industry standard from my background. There'll be one shift commander responding from a command vehicle deployed out of our headquarters station, Fire Station 81. Each station will have one staffed fire engine, which will include a lieutenant who's in command of that engine and that crew, and there'll be 3 firefighters assigned to each engine. So it's an assigned 4-person engine at each station, with 3 being the minimum staffing for that engine to operate safely and effectively. Before I go further, I just want to make sure that you know too that our current paid on call suppression firefighting is sunsetting. It's prepared to sunset in 2025. So another one of my deliverables is working with the members of our fire family and what that transition is going to look like for all of them. Some are going to move on. Several would like to transition to career positions. And I'm talking with many of them now about what their continued role in our fire department could look like. We have a lot of non-suppression needs in training, public education, admin support. Some of those people have been here for a long time, and we respect that, and we want to take care of them. So again, what's 2025 going to look at next? This is a 2-station model. 12 firefighters assigned to each station. Again, 3 shifts, A, B, and C shift, with 4 firefighters assigned to each engine each day. So what is that going to take? We know the staffing component. The levy has a staffing component. The POC budget will change. I absolutely recommend moving forward as we have, and I'll show you on the next page, the 9 additional FTEs that we'll need to finish all those roles. Looking at additional funding. I look at a SAFER grant. A SAFER grant is similar to a COPS grant. It's been around for a few years. I've been very successful of in the past. It's an opportunity, what I call frosting on the cake. It's an opportunity to get funding for firefighters for a 3-year period, paying salary and benefits. So it's an excellent opportunity that I hope we look at. But again, I want to be clear that if our vision is that cake, I want us to be prepared to move forward if we don't have the frosting. And I think we are in a situation there. I know David certainly has looked at our funding models, and I will continue to do the same. I do recommend moving forward with the additional firefighters occurs well before the opening of Fire Station 2. Generally, I like to see a 6 to 9, if not 12-month pre-hire of my personnel. Because it takes 3 or 4 months in a fire academy, and then there's a lot of internal hiring that happens. So these are things that we can schedule and look at going forward. So this is the personnel additions that currently, with current staff, that we would be short to fill these models. Again, we need 3 additional lieutenants that I think was part of the structure back with the levy and bond. If you look at those coming from the internal ranks, so there probably will be 3 firefighters that move up into those roles. So we will need 9 additional firefighters to fill all the vacancies that we need to make this happen. It's also very important for me to make sure council understands that as the fire department grows, and I know it's the same with the police department, we can't ignore support staff. So on the radar in the future, we're going to need help with many of these things: training, public education, just administration. Many of these, in the meantime, we will be passing along to our new shift commanders. They're projects that will be taken over by our lieutenants in our department. So we'll manage to make these things happen. Just at some point in the future, there's going to need to be consideration for support staffing. Finally, my final deliverable is I was asked what I thought would be valuable for your long-term fire chief in this organization, for the permanent chief. And again, my thoughts, as I've looked at this department now for the last 3 months and looking at what their needs are, I really think that you need to find more than just a fire service leader. I think you need to find someone that can teach and coach and mentor. This is a department of young people that are really enjoying the training that we're having now, and I certainly want that to continue. I want you to have a chief that has a vision and can communicate that vision, not only to council, but to the community and to their organization. Certainly, tactical proficiency is a big part of fire chief. Someone who has experience in a unique situation that really Oak Harbor is in, because there's not a lot of organizations that are truly on an island where automatic aid and mutual aid are not quite as abundant as they could be. So it's a different type of firefighting that we're going to experience here. And so ideally someone with that experience would be tremendously beneficial. And finally, just someone that's willing to engage in the community, be part of the community, live and work and play in the community, I think would be ideal for this department going forward. So with that, that's kind of my thoughts and views. Open to questions and comments.
So Chief, before I turn this over to council, I just want to personally thank you for your leadership and your vision. This was one of the first leadership changes that I made at the city, and I took many lickings for it, and I'll still continue to take them, because every day you affirm to me that that was the right choice and that you're doing an excellent job. And our fire department is in a much better place today because of you, and I appreciate you every day. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
With that, just one quick point with your presentation. 6 to 12 month pre-hire of personnel, you had mentioned that you would like to do that. Ability to function, house, and accommodate those, because I had heard conflicting things in the past that we couldn't really accommodate that. So are we going to be able to make sure all of that works until we have both fire stations up and functioning?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We make anything work.
Okay.
You know, we can go with 8 people comfortably. In this scenario, there could potentially be 9, but we do have offices that we can temporarily turn into. Really, it's sleeping quarters.
Awesome.
At that point, everything, but we make anything work.
Great. All right.
put
Well,
bunk
again,
beds.
personally, thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate our conversation. So with that, I'll take questions, comments from council, and Councilmember Hoffmeyer has something to say.
Yeah, first, when is your last potential day on the job? What,
Well,
How many more days can you stay with us?
I'm prepared to, be here as long as there need. I would say, and I know I've talked a little bit with the mayor and with Emma, with the council's blessing for this vision, chances are they would open up a permanent search here as early as next week, which I would expect would probably be a 30-day process to find the next fit, and then it's a matter of when that person could come in and start, and then I'm more than willing, as I've told the mayor, to talk about being available for the transition, shadowing, whatever we might need moving forward.
Perfect. Now, you've served in this interim role quite a few times now, haven't you?
Pardon me?
You've served in this interim role quite a few times now.
No, this is the first time
Okay.
as interim.
Okay.
I retired just about a year ago. from
Okay.
my
You
career.
know, a very wise man once said, and it was shortly after he left the chair that Tony was sitting in about 11 years ago, when Bill Hawkins went across the road to become Judge Hawkins. He was quoted in the newspaper as saying that a very wise man once said that if you want to move the piano from one side of the church to the other, you do it an inch a Sunday. So change can be hard. I get that. I have many friends in the department. It's clear that their morale is not as high as it was 3 months ago. But I get that. Change can be tough, and I'm sure it's something you've dealt with at different times in your career. When you mentioned what we're looking for in our next fire chief, teacher, coach, mentor, vision, communicator, tactfully proficient, willing to engage in the community, that is what we had with our last fire chief. And I think that's why he was so respected in the community. And I think the community certainly would agree that that's what we need in our next chief. It was not the right decision to part with him the way we did. However, this council and this administration agrees that the fire department is a #1 priority, and that we're going to move forward together in it. But again, that change can be tough, and just let your firefighters know that we have their back, and we will get through this. So thank you.
I will, for sure.
Councilmember Stuckey.
Couple questions. One I often like to ask regarding the new fire station. We still kind of on time and at or under budget?
Yes. I'm an impatient person, so I get frustrated by bureaucracy sometimes. But
Sorry.
we are working forward. We actually got everybody all together last week on the same page. Right now, I would say that we are on schedule to have documents prepared and done and approved by the end of June, and it sounds like the week of July 15th going out for bid, which means we should have a contractor on board by the end of August.
Okay, and it probably was in your I know it's in your presentation, but right now, in an average weekday at this time, how many firefighters are on shift?
So currently, we probably have 5 during the day, 4 career, and we'll often have one of our remaining paid-on-call people working. Sometimes it'll be 5 career.
And then with the new staffing changes, it would be 7?
So, 9 assigned, 7 minimum staffing, yes, 3, and 1.
And in your opinion, because not a firefighter, in my line of work as a mortician, there's some similarities. You have a saying, hurry up and wait. There's a lot of, we don't know when someone's going to pass. You don't know when there's going to be a fire, right?
Correct.
That level of staffing, do you feel that is appropriate, not enough? Like when I hear 60 fires responded to me, that doesn't sound like much, but I'm sure there's much more going into it than I realized not doing your line of work. Do you think having, say, on the high end 9 per shift, is that more than we truly need? Or what is your opinion on the staffing?
So I think that's an absolute minimum to staff to be able to maintain the 7-person minimum. I think as, now, real quickly, with 9 people, a lot of times, 1 or 2 people are going to be off on leave time, vacation leave, sick leave. If 2 people are on vacation and 1 sick leave, then we're 1 short, so we're going to have to bring some back to fill that. So as the department ages and firefighters get more leave, you will have to hire additional firefighters, usually 1 per shift at a time, usually 3 at a time, just to cover the leave balances that people will have going forward. So there'll be some overtime maybe that we haven't seen before. Again, you can balance overtime with leave time to make decisions on when to hire. Having just those 7 people in the organization, in my world, is, I'm going to be careful with this. There's always a chance of a bad fire that it's not enough personnel to respond to. In my old worlds, in departments that had 1 or 2 fire stations, they were generally surrounded with automatic aid, where 15 people is the general standard as what's called an effective response force. And so we know that in the city, that we cannot get 15 people. At least if we do, it's going to be a long time. So that changes the way we fight some fires, because we have to do our job, but we have to be safe to the public and ourselves. So I'm very impressed with the way that we respond here with what I deem to be, kind of a minimum staffing model. We do very good with it. But certainly going below that, as we work now, a lot of times we'll just have 1 fire engine staff during the day, and again, that's going to change that model even more about how we fight fires, how we initiate rescues and things like that. So it's as a fire chief, I'd love to have, in a city this size, I'd love to have 4 stations with 4 engines. And we put them to work when we're not fighting fires. I mean, there's a lot that we do on the side, but if that kind of long-winded answers your question.
Sure, and I know that there's a lot of what you do is, medical calls. It's not, people think of firefighters, think of fighting fires. There's a whole lot more to it, but there is eventually a diminishing return. You could say let's have 100 firefighters on, but obviously that wouldn't be really realistic. So it's where's that number where it's enough risk we're willing to take and not be frivolous with the money, and yet do the response that we need. So I appreciate your perspective in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Stuckey. Anyone else? Councilmember Marshall.
Chief Olson, I appreciate the report. I just, can you remind me what the levy, how many of these 9 additional full-time employees the levy's actually funding, and then for what length of time? Because what I was hearing in what you were saying is be prepared to fund additional later down the line. You didn't come right out and say it, but I kind of got that sense that, hey, we're going to be coming and asking for money before too long. So I'm just
Well,
curious.
not necessarily, and I see David on there. David's got a better handle on that than me.
All right. Yeah, David Goldman. Sorry, Deputy City Administrator. Yeah, so the original levy was to fund, I'm trying to think, 4 + 2 + 3, 9 firefighters and 2 lieutenants and 2 captains. And we filled 1 of the lieutenants and we filled 2 of the firefighters already from that. But I took a look at I did some calculations on how much we've received so far in 23, how much we're on track to receive in 24, and so on. And, we do have the funding to, especially considering that the paid on call Vision was also partially funded by the levy, and that's going to be shifted into another direction. We do have the funding to hire these 3 additional lieutenants and 6 additional firefighters with the levy money.
And then how long does that levy money last?
I went out 10 years. We had money for over 10 years. My spreadsheet doesn't go farther than that. But eventually, eventually with increases being greater than the 1%, because
Yeah.
once the levy was put in place, now we're limited to 1%. Eventually it will cross and will run out, but that's not going to be in the next 10 years. It'll be farther than that. But but that's kind of how it is for everything, because the property taxes are limited. Eventually everything is, unless new revenue sources are created or new ways of doing business are evolved. That's just how it is for pretty much everything. But you got at least 10 years with that money, probably more. Probably.
Okay. Great,
I
thank
can
you.
do more calculations.
Okay. My last question is just kind of in terms of collaboration with North Woodby. How has that been? How do you see that moving forward cooperatively? I mean, I imagine we have to respond to some of the same calls, or we still doing some joint training type of things? And
Yes. So I'm a big believer in regional cooperation because we have to be for that reason. I haven't spent a lot of time with North Whidbey yet. I know that their career staffing is 2 people. So, their ability to help us is I can't measure it yet. But those are relationships that I want to work on, because I know there's some a list on my desk of even some response issues where we should be helping them out on our borders, and it may not there. So I don't know if that's some lingering effect of some previous relationships or not, but it's definitely, the regional approach has to occur. So we'll make the best of what they can offer.
Thank you, Councilmember Marshall. Councilmember Arms, did you have anything? Nope. Okay, that's it. All right. Well, again, thank you very much for your presentation and for all of your good leadership. All right, we are moving on to Public Works, City of Oak Harbor Equipment Rental and Replacement Fund, and here to talk to us is our Central Services Manager, Sandra Place.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council members. Sandra Place, Central Services Manager. Today, I'd like to provide an update on the city's Equipment Rental and Replacement Fund. This is particularly timely with the 2025-26 biennial budget in full swing. Besides staff and capital projects, vehicles and equipment are one of the biggest components of the budget. I affectionately call the Central Services the triple threat because it consists of procurement, fleet, and facilities. All are vital to the city, and they support all of our city departments. In the last workshop, I updated City Council about procurement, so today we're going to talk about fleet, which is also called equipment rental, and next month will be facilities. Equipment rental is a revolving fund, or ENR fund, and is established to provide equipment rental services with the local governments. In our city, this fund was established in 1998 by Ordinance 1125. These funds increase government efficiency by giving governments a way to allow expensive equipment and vehicles, in essence, to be rented to the government's various departments. Our ENR fund is an internal service fund, which should be operated on a cost reimbursement basis without any profit. And that is what we do here at the City of Oak Harbor. There are 2 funds that work together under this one policy. These 2 funds consist of an internal service fund that does repair and maintenance, and the other is long-term funds for replacement. Our mission is very simple. We are all about service and support. And that's super important to our team, because what we do allows the other teams to do what they do best. We have a team of 4 individuals. I have managed this fund since 1999, when I was handed a manual for a new software program and told get it in place. Ken Riley is our lead mechanic, and he brings to the table 17 years of municipal mechanical knowledge, and he's also a key player in our replacement program. Joe Ramirez is our diesel mechanic, and he is highly skilled in garbage trucks and fire apparatuses. And in addition, he brings 9 years of municipal mechanical knowledge. Katie Lewis joined our team a year ago, and she helps them with their daily purchasing needs, as well as she enters their data into the system so we can be able to run reports and do interfund transfers. The equipment rental division is small, but we're mighty. This slide shows our vehicle to equipment ratio. This is a huge responsibility for our 2 mechanics, but we pride ourselves by being preventative, and this helps keep us, and also having a great replacement program helps keep everything running smoothly. Several jobs are done out of house due to the size of our fleet. It's not cost effective for us to do them inside. And this slide just shows some of our in-house repairs and out of house. By no means is this the whole entire list. Like other funds, we also have a budget. Our budget mainly consists of salaries, benefits, parts, tools, fuel, insurance, and training. This is an example of the water division's line. So in each of the budgets, they have a line for interfund motor pool, and that's where we budget what the replacement or what we would need to take care of their vehicles. The second one, interfund equipment and vehicle contributions, is what we project their replacement funds need to be to keep them on track. So in our work order system, we actually do create work orders for every time that the vehicle comes into the shop. And this will collect data for our labor, our parts, overhead, and fuel. I just like this chart because it shows who our heavy users are through the work order system. And so our top 3 users here are solid waste, motor pool, and fire. This is pretty typical. The cost of those parts and equipment are huge, so it doesn't surprise us that they are our top 3. This one is by labor hours, and it shifts a little bit to solid waste, motor pool, and our police department, which again is not surprising because these vehicles are on the road a lot more than any other vehicles. Particularly solid waste is, on the road 5 days a week, 7 hours a day. They even do weekend shifts, and they also do holidays for their commercial shift. Motor pool vehicles, these are used by all of the divisions with the city, so they're heavily used as well. And again, police 24/7. They're running 2 shifts. They're going to be bound to have more time in the shop. And it's very important for us to be able to prevent and maintenance them so that they are up and running at all times. Like many city departments, we have challenges, but we also have opportunities to bring solutions to the table. Our current challenges are availability of parts due to an aging fleet, availability of vehicles and equipment and replacement. You've heard that from us several times. New technology keeping up with, and minimizing our downtime with a lean fleet. It's not moving forward to me. Thank you. This slide shows our fuel costs. We work to get fuel-efficient vehicles like hybrids. We have no control, obviously, on the cost, but we do have a little bit of control because we do buy right off the rack, which saves with a government rate. And it's also available for all of our vehicles 24/7. Our division also takes care of the property list for the city assets through our insurance company. Our division also takes great pride in being environmentally friendly where we can and where it's feasible. We've done hybrids, flex fuel vehicles, electric vehicles, and we have several different recycling efforts that are done inside of our shop. So in the replacement fund, it's very similar looking, but we have only 3 components of this one. We will replace minor equipment. We have some repair and maintenance specifically for lift stations, and then we have capital replacements. This is just a 6-year projection that we include in the budget, and I made it go bigger here just to show you the 2023 year. This was all of our scheduled replacements last year. We have accomplished all but 5 of them, and of course, some of them are on order and have not come in yet. But if they're not ordered, it's because they did not meet criteria. So they'll be bumped to the next year, and if they meet criteria, that's when they will go ahead and be replaced. This is just an example of one of the things we did before. They were just shoving all their equipment into the Tahoes. We ended up getting the drawers and the shelving, and it just made it easier for the operators. So we try to do that as much as we can, especially when we're upfitting our new vehicles. We're looking at what is the best components to put inside of them. We work in partnership with all of the departments, and this is, sorry, let me find out where I'm at. This one is in a recent GFOA article titled Power, Politics, and Budgeting. And there was an example given of a mid-sized city whose vehicle replacement fund was headed for insolvency. And because they needed larger contributions from departments, there were it wasn't so transparent. So these departments decided to get together so they could to trust the system better. And so what they started doing was that they had these meetings, which is what the city of Oak Harbor does. We have a meeting with every department. We go through every line item. We talk to them. And by opening the books, we remove that mystery of what's happening to their vehicles and their funds. This process is really good. It allows us to write the story, and it increases partnership with our departments, which are our customers. I mentioned this article because we've been doing this for decades, and it works really well. And I think we do have a great system in place in the city of Oak Harbor. Right sizing, I call this our transformer. I think some of you might have seen it before. We've had this truck for several years, and what it does is it's one cabin chassis, but we have 8 different platforms that we put things on, and so it's a swap loader. It just drops them, picks up the next one. You can go to another site, drop it, do whatever you need. So what it does is it takes 8 vehicles and makes it one vehicle, so we can be a little bit more efficient with not having a bunch of vehicles just sitting on the fleet. This is another example of right sizing. So this is a Cat backhoe and a Cat loader, and we have the same attachments. So we could have bought a different make of a different loader, but we decided to continue with the Cat because we were able to interchange the attachments. And that's important for, again, efficiency and to save costs for the city. Another example of right sizing that we're talking about right now would be possibly take-home vehicles for patrol vehicles. Does it make fiscal sense? And we're exploring many options to be able to bring to the table. We, again, use many different procurement tools, just like with anything else. During the budget process, specifically David put this in, and I really liked it. It said the city's operating budget policies specifically state that biennial operating budgets should provide for the maintenance and replacement of the city capital plant and equipment, and that the city will maintain its assets at a level that protects the city's capital investment and minimizes future maintenance and replacement costs. During this budget cycle, you're going to see a lot of new requests, I think, to the fleet. And to be sustainable, these requests must also include the long-term funding for repair and maintenance and for replacement. So looking forward, we're always looking ahead. We are planning for replacements because that happens as soon as we get them. We do annual reviews of their conditions and if they're still meeting their operational needs. And we make adjustments to the replacement schedule as needed. And lastly, our department is also responsible for the surplus and disposal of city assets. This is done by coming to council and declaring the asset surplus. And then we always see what's best for the city, whether it's going to be trading it in, selling it to another agency, an online auction, which we've been using lately a lot. And coming back by popular demand this year is the citywide auction in person. It's actually going to be a hybrid where they'll be able to look at the items on site, but then it goes to the auction house online to be handled. And that is my presentation.
Thank you so much, Sandra. All right, I will turn it over to council for comments or questions. All right, hearing that. Oh, yep, Councilmember Hoffmeyer.
Just real quick, Sandra, you know, I know it hasn't always been sunshine and rainbows at Public Works. You know, you've really grown into this position and flourished, and every time you come to council, there's positivity, and it's very appreciated, so thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Anyone else? Thank you
Great,
again,
thank
Sandra.
you.
Great job. All right, we are going to move on to administration and our monthly department report. Introducing Miss Sabrina Combs, our interim city administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, so typically that report is in there. Due to some of the projects we have, we are going to send you some supplemental items. We do have a report from Crossroads Strategies, our lobbyist, that we will be sending out to you via email, and some other data that we received. So we just want to get that update to you as well, because we know it was a little short this month. So that's it. And if you have any questions for me, let me know.
Oh, that was short and sweet. Any questions, comments from City Council? All right, hearing none. Thank you so much. All right, last but not least, I think we have on the agenda, we have the Oak Harbor Yacht Club 2023 Annual Report to City Council.
Good afternoon. My name is Bob McCrary. I'm the Vice Commodore of the Oak Harbor Yacht Club. I've been a resident of Oak Harbor 5 years now. I'm a Navy veteran and a retired urban planner. I want to introduce members of my team. Monica Rosenfeld, our treasurer, and Laura Wandell, our event coordinator. And actually, before I get started with the presentation, Laura has a few personal comments she'd like to make.
Thank you for the introduction, Bob. I actually know most of the people in this room because I grew up here. And I don't know if you guys know me, but I moved away as soon as I could. And I eventually grew up, and I realized that my home is a really wonderful place. We live in a very unique town. We live on an island, and there's really no place quite like this. And I did just kind of want to address like the elephant in the room, because I think what has happened, and I think the reason why we're here, is I think that you guys think that we make a lot of money. We don't make that much money. We make a little bit of money, but we are a nonprofit, and we're not just like another business. We are a valuable asset to the community. I'm standing up here with the fire chief and with public transportation and things that really make our community work. And the yacht club is definitely something that is giving back to the community. We do a lot of work for nonprofits and things that just really kind of give back. So I just wanted to kind of point that out and let you guys know that I'm here to stay, and please don't increase our rent. And to that, I'll hand it over to Bob, who has all the details about our money situations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Ryan Bradley, our Commodore, and David Maruna, our Rear Commodore, couldn't be here today, and they send their regrets. So the Oak Harbor Yacht Club, we've been a member of your community for 42 years now, since 1982, so we've been around for a while. We are a private club regulated by the state through our 501c7 status. We are a community of people who love the Salish Sea and boating in particular. And we represent a broad swath of the Oak Harbor community. So these are some of the organizations that we work closely with. You'll be familiar with most of them. If you're not familiar with the American Boating Club, they used to be called the Power and Sailing Squadron of Deception Pass, but they got rebranded at a national level, so they were forced to change their name. And they are we've worked very closely with them for a long time. Their mission is boating education, especially safety education. And so they teach a lot of seminars and classes at the yacht club, teaching people how to be safe on the water. And you can obtain your state card, which is actually required for boaters through them. We are also a critical link to the youth sailing culture. We provide meeting space, staffing, and other resources to the youth sailing community. We've been involved with Oak Harbor Youth Sailing, which is its own nonprofit, for many, many years. In fact, our members of the club were founders of that organization. And just last week, you may have seen a whole lot of little boats out in the harbor here, and we were hosting the National High School Sailing Championships. And they haven't posted the results yet, so I can't tell you how the Wildcats did. But we have a very competitive program at Oak Harbor High School. So who are the members of the Oak Harbor Yacht Club? Well, we don't fit the stereotype, that's for sure. We have a very casual environment, and we welcome people from every walk of life. In fact, we might resemble one of those beach clubs, very ultra-casual beach clubs that you see on TV, but Oak Harbor is just not warm enough for that. So, we want new members. In fact, we need new members. Like a lot of people, we were hit hard by COVID, and public and private organizations alike, and we lost some members during COVID. And you may already be aware, it's a cultural phenomena where young people aren't joining traditional service organizations or clubs at the rate that they used to. And so it's a little bit of a challenge, and we are looking to be a lot more proactive in going out to the community and trying to attract new members to the Oak Harbor Yacht Club. So as mentioned, we are very casual. The downstairs part of the club is where the members gather, and we have this big outdoor grill. Yes, you have to cook your own food at the Oak Harbor Yacht Club. We do not have a full-service restaurant. We never have. And Sailfleet is a very important part of the club. And every Thursday night, they get out and they go and they race around the buoys in Penn Cove. And so we provide a place for serious sailors to get out and get competitive and have fun. The Whidbey Island Summer Classic Regatta, or Whisker for short, will be going into its third year this year. Last year was very successful. We had over 30 boats out here for over a 3-day regatta, attracting them from all over the region. And we expect this year, it'll be at the end of July, will even be bigger and better than before. And it really, events like this really helps put Oak Harbor on the map. It shows that Oak Harbor is a center for maritime activities. And a little bit more about the Sailfleet. You don't have to be a member of the Oak Harbor Yacht Club to participate in the Sailfleet. Some of the boat captains are just members of the community, and anybody can just network with our Sailfleet captain and end up crewing on one of these boats. The sailboat captains are always looking for crew. So if this is something that you or any member of our community wants to do, is that opportunity is available to them. We also have a cruise fleet. Not everybody has a boat that's suitable for cruising, certainly, but many members do take on their friends and guests, and we do several cruises out into the Sailor Sea and points farther north. And what a wonderful opportunity, being on Whidbey Island, because we're closer to those wonderful places, and so our cruisers do take advantage of that. And you don't even have to ride on a boat if you don't want to be part of the scene. We call them land sharks. They hop a ferry and often meet the cruisers at places like Deer Harbor and other locations. This is our second year of having a kayak fleet. We have a number of very dedicated kayakers in our club, and they are actively promoting weekly outings, and we are inviting members of the community to come out and join the group, and we're actually excited by the prospect of growing this particular community, and we'd like to make Oak Harbor a center for human-powered boating and for kayaking and other forms of that kind of boating. And so we're So we expect the kayak fleet to grow considerably this year and into the future. Okay, now we ease into the reporting requirements portion of the presentation in summary form. Much more detail is in the handouts that were part of the program. The upstairs ballroom is a unique meeting space which reflects an important aspect of the public use and benefits of the Oak Harbor Yacht Club. So our attendance for hosted events was approximately 4,320 in the year 2023. We don't keep attendance of our members when they just show up for like on a Friday night to hang out with each other, but a reasonable estimate would be about 50 per week, or roughly 1,300 people a year. I mean, a typical week would actually be less than that, but we do have special events, and so that would bring up the average a little bit. So this is the financial summary. The funds collected last year, 228,481. Member dues are an important part of this, but run about 35% of the total. Our member dues are very modest by regional standards. And these are the funds expended. We have some financial challenges. Our revenues are flat, and our expenses have gone up considerably, as they have for most people with inflation. And some things have gone up even faster than inflation, insurance costs in particular. And so we have some challenges, but we are being very proactive about addressing those. The taxes that you see here are just property taxes. We pay sales tax on everything that we sell at the club. So that's just, standard. Improvements in 2023. The ballroom went through a major renovation in early 2023. It was an expensive endeavor, but we thought it was an important strategic investment to modernize the ballroom and make it a more attractive facility for the outside community. And so we took that on. And an old building, and it is an old building, needs constant maintenance and routine repairs. And we had a number of expensive one-time repairs in the last 2 years as well. So these are our hours of operation. We are generally only open 3 days a week for the members, although that's actually a lot if you look at other yacht clubs in the region, even some that are larger and more posh than we are. So we do our best, but we are open 365 days a year for the community to come in and use the ballroom or for meeting space. So and of course we can be open other times for special purposes. The yacht club has 4 part-time employees, and everything else, and I mean there's a lot to do, everything else is done by volunteers. Although we are not a philanthropy, service to the community is part of our creed. We actively support our community in numerous ways. Some of them we've already mentioned, but we are actively involved in helping out Spin Cafe and Northwest Bloodworks and a number of other organizations, and that's important to us. And we are also a strong partner with the marina. Among other things, we supply PFDs for children. We do small boat support for the Hydros for Heroes every summer. And we have members who are liveaboard who routinely help clear out logs when we get those big king tides that come in. And we are actively looking to grow our relationship with the marina. And we're in discussions to do that in a number of different ways. So we are looking to grow our relationship with Oak Harbor community in as many ways as we can. We have a new relationship with the SUVA, which may help closer knit together the maritime communities on the island, with Coupeville in particular here. And Oak Harbor Yacht Club looks forward to a positive, collaborative relationship with the city that benefits everybody. And with that, I'd like to open it up to questions.
Great. Thanks, Mr. McCleary. I have a few questions myself, but I'm going to let council go first, and then I will present my questions. The reason for questions, though, just so you're aware, is one of the requirements with your contract is that you present financials on an annual basis, and this is the first time they're being presented in, yeah, it's been several years. So that's one of the biggest reasons that we have so many questions, and then there are some glaring disparities in what you presented today versus what's on your financial statements that you provided to us. There are some significant differences, and I do have some questions about those things as well. So with that, though, I will turn it over to council first. Councilmember Stuckey.
I'm going to steal a little bit of your thunder. First of all, I've been there, I'm not a member, but I've been there many times for Rotary or Chamber of Commerce. It's a lovely facility, view you can't beat, that's for sure. Rent's not going up. Last year we signed a 10-year contract. You're good for a decade. But one thing that came from that, as Mayor alluded to, is having a yearly report, which we hadn't had. I think I've been here 3 or 4 years. I haven't had a yearly report yet. So, as you mentioned, I too have some questions about the financials. Not to pick it apart just because we haven't had a yearly report. This is the first time we've seen anything. So, looking at your profit and loss, membership dues. You mentioned things going down because of COVID, yet between 23 and 22, you more than doubled your membership dues in 23. Membership dues in 23 were, I like to round, 123,000 compared to membership dues in 22 of 67,000. Is that a great increase in the members, or is that raising due? That's a twofold increase. Fourth item down on the profit and loss.
I apologize, I'm still having a hard time. Oh, there it is.
That's okay.
Yep. I believe it would be a increase in members, yeah.
So that would be almost, assuming you didn't raise your membership by much, that would be almost a double increase based upon the numbers here. You've increased by double from 22 to 23, or is that partly attributed to the increase in dues as well?
The dues have not increased. We increase it with a COLA that's written into our bylaws.
Okay.
So there's a small modest increase, every year.
So your membership, you said, COVID was difficult, but your membership has then, if I'm just looking at this, your membership is double from 22 to 23 based on the fact that number is almost double in dues. Does that sound accurate?
I don't have the membership numbers at my fingertips, so I can't say with clarity.
Sure.
But yeah, I think that's a reasonable interpretation of those numbers.
Beverage costs, I see went up. I understand inflation, but beverage costs went up, well, double, yet sales was up, I could do the math, but only 5,000. What do you attribute the massive increase in the cost of goods for alcohol to?
Some of it was low inventory, but yeah, the prices have gone up a lot, and we were slow to adjust our prices, honestly. We just did that earlier this year. We were charging well below market
Sure.
for our drinks, which
So that'll probably,
which is not smart business, but that's,
No.
yeah.
you know, but it sounds like you're on top of that, and it'll probably change for this next year then in '24. Legal and accounting I see is up quite a bit as well. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if you can talk about that too much with legal, but it was there.
Well, accounting, we were not fully professionalized when it came to our accounting services 3 years ago, and which was to our detriment because we didn't really, know as much as we should know about
Sure.
about the business, and the accounting services are, expensive, especially for someone who doesn't do a lot of business, but we can't really do without it. But
Right.
yeah.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. There's just some curiosities in here as I look at the profit and loss. I'm not gonna dig too much far into it. I'm just noticing too. You did mention some financial struggles, and I can see that with 22 showing a profit of almost 22,000 and 23 showing a deficit of 1,500, which is unfortunate to see considering it looks like you guys brought in double the income and membership dues. So it's definitely a little tightening of numbers that hopefully you'll have a little better opportunity to do so this year. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Stuckey. Councilmember Hoffmeyer.
Yeah, thanks for this annual report. I think it's a great opportunity for you guys to use the stage to, highlight some of the offerings that you have. I've got a lot of really good friends that are part of the yacht club or your Commodore, Cedric Nero. I've known Cedric since 1999. Laura Herman or Laura Wandell, we've known each other since the summer of '99. Many of your members. So it's very clear to me, how much of a benefit the Oak Harbor Yacht Club is to the community. And it's also not lost on me that, we have the Elks Club and what Carrie Allen does over there, and we've got the Oak Harbor Yacht Club and what you guys and Laura are doing. And really, when it comes to weddings or graduations, etc., really the only game in town. So, such a vital service that you guys provide. Can't thank you enough for it. Like Councilmember Stuckey said, council did sign that 10-year rental agreement with you guys, and keep doing the good work and look forward to next year's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, sir, for your presentation and for your service. Please take what I'm about to say with no disrespect intended. For me personally, I don't really care what you guys do within the confines of that building, right? We rent it to you. It's your club. You do what you want. I can recognize what the service that you provide to the community. Ma'am, to your point, I am one that would like to see your rent increased. I think that you've been given a great deal for a long time, what your finances are, and if I had the authority to bring this back, and I will be discussing this, you've been in violation of your contract for a number of years. The contract specifically says you're supposed to provide financials, and that hasn't been done. Here we are in May, the contract was signed in December, and we are just now getting that financial information. So as far as I'm concerned, you're in breach, and we should be taking a look at that contract again. Whether you make enough money for a rent increase or not is irrelevant to us. You mentioned firsthand, costs go up, expenses go up. You mentioned you want to be a good partner with the marina. Your revenue from this rental goes to the marina. We've increased the moorage rates for all the boats across the board. And I'm not going to sit here and say, well, boaters have more money so they can afford that. It's the same argument. You may not make a lot of money as a nonprofit. Boaters don't necessarily make a lot of money, but their rents have gone up because we have significant challenges with our marina that are going to require additional funding. And so for the yacht club to continue to get this honey of a deal, in my opinion, is just not right. Our expenses have gone up, the marina expenses have gone up, the boaters' mortgages have gone up. in my opinion, your rent should go up as well. And so that's my stance on that. And I've had one member, a former Commodore, say, well, if you do that, we'll just tear the building down. I'm okay with that, because we could put something else there that would serve the same purpose, and we make more money off of it, quite frankly. So, again, I mean, no disrespect, but I'm passionate about what is in the best interest of our community. And while I recognize the service that you provide, and I appreciate that, and I thank you for that, I still feel like you're getting one heck of a deal that has been allowed to continue for far too long, and no rent increases other than perhaps a CIP. You are doing a COLA increase for your members. It should be, kind of consider that is going to be a step increase. We are going to be increasing rents. That happens across the board, happens with every industry. And so, that's just my, I'm obviously part of the minority of that, but that is just my thoughts. And so, I felt it's important to share, because I was very vocal about it in December and continue to feel that way. And quite frankly, the input that I get from the community is, yeah, you guys are getting a heck of a deal, and it's not quite right. Again, thank you for your presentation, your service.
Thank you, Councilman Art.
Thank you, Councilmember Marshall. You didn't have anything before you want to go? Okay, Councilmember Arms.
Thank you for your presentation. I really appreciate it. And we've been waiting for this for quite a long time. And I kind of agree with Councilmember Marshall. I mean, I know it puts a burden on a lot of people, but you do provide a service, and it does help out the marina, and we're all needing extra funds there. And I agree that we should, maybe it's not a lot of increase, but we should be able to do something and provide, not be locked in for 10 years. I think that's too long of a contract, maybe a 5-year at the most. But that's a lot, because a lot changes in that 10 years, expenses and all these other things. And, but it's the way it is, and we'll see how it goes. But thank you again for presenting, and we really appreciate it.
Great, thank you very much. So I just want to conclude with saying that I appreciate you coming forward today and presenting. Like I said, though, I do have some questions around the validity of the financial statements that you presented and the numbers, because the numbers in your presentation are substantially different from the numbers in your financial statements. So your numbers on your slides are about 50 some odd thousand. I don't have the exact number. I will get that to you. But it's over $50,000 difference from your revenues on there versus what's in your financial statements. Your expenses on there are also different from what you're presenting on your financial statements. You've indicated that you had substantial ballroom improvements. I see $11,000 in an increase in your fixed assets on your balance sheet. Is that what you're calling a substantial improvement to your ballroom? I'm just clarifying with you. Is that your substantial improvement to the ballroom, $11,000? Or how much was that contract work?
Well, there was no contract. All the work was done by members.
So
and-
there was no payment for, you would have still had to have bought cost of goods though, right?
Oh, we had to buy.
Yeah, material and.
We had to buy materials and.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So, and then the last thing that I just wanted to ask a question about, maybe, and you guys could have just reclassified this, and that's fine, but there's absolutely zero space rental income in 2023. So is that just now under contracted services, where when someone rents out? Okay, that's what I kind of figured, but I just wanted to make sure. Okay. Okay. So the only thing that I'm going to ask you to do, and you don't have to come back and present. I'm happy to provide a report to council if you guys will just provide a report to me, but why there are differences in what you're presenting in your slideshow versus what's in your financial statements. I would like to see that, or an explanation for that, because we do have council members that would like to see this brought back and re-voted on, and there is a different administration somewhat here now. So, again, I want to try to be able to advocate and explain whatever your variances are, your differences are, and see if we can just have a discussion at a workshop or an executive session or something, and then, or what avenue we're going to pursue. So Is that going to be doable if I give you like another, week or 10 days to present why there's a difference in what's in your slideshow versus what's in your financial statements?
Certainly.
Okay, great. All right, well, with that, I think we've asked all of our questions, and I thank you for your time and appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
All right. All right, with that, I will turn it over to City Council for their comments or questions at this time. No comments, no questions. All right.